What if the greatest empires in human history were not built on victory, but on failure? What if every collapse, every defeat, every humiliation was not the end of power, but the beginning of greatness? Today we are diving into a truth history rarely teaches. The world's strongest empires were not shaped by success. They were forged in moments of crushing loss, moments when leaders faced impossible odds and refused to quit. Because failure does not destroy empires, weak reactions to failure do. And the lesson hidden inside history might completely change how you look at your own setbacks. History often celebrates victories, but the real turning points happen after disaster. The difference between ordinary nations and legendary empires was never perfection. It was resilience, the ability to stand up stronger after falling harder. And no empire proves this better than ancient Rome. Rome did not rise smoothly. Rome almost died multiple times. One of its darkest moments came during the Second Punic War, when the brilliant general Hannibal crossed the Alps with elephants and crushed Roman armies again and again. At the Battle of Cannae, Rome suffered one of the worst military defeats in history. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were wiped out in a single day. The world believed Rome was finished. Allies abandoned them, enemies prepared for victory, fear filled the streets. But Rome made a decision that changed history. Instead of surrendering, they rebuilt. Instead of negotiating, they adapted. They trained new armies, changed strategies, and learned from defeat. Years later, Rome turned the war around, defeated Hannibal, and eventually became the dominant power of the Mediterranean. Rome's greatness was not born at its peak, it was born at its lowest point. Failure forced Rome to innovate. They stopped relying on old tactics. They empowered new leadership. They became flexible, and flexibility became their greatest weapon. The lesson is simple. Failure exposes weakness, but it also reveals opportunity. If Rome had never failed, Rome would never have evolved. Centuries later, another empire faced humiliation that reshaped its destiny, the British Empire. Before becoming the largest empire in history, the British Empire suffered a massive psychological blow, losing the American colonies. The American Revolution was not just a military defeat, it was a global embarrassment. Britain lost territory, prestige, and confidence. Many believed the empire's age was over, but instead of collapsing, Britain transformed itself. British leaders rethought governance, trade, and expansion. They shifted focus toward naval dominance, industrial innovation, and global commerce. The defeat forced modernization. The Industrial Revolution accelerated Britain's power, allowing it to build economic influence stronger than territorial control. Within decades, Britain expanded across Asia, Africa, and beyond, becoming an empire where the sun never set. Failure redirected strategy, and that redirection created dominance. The pattern repeats again and again across history. Empires rise after crisis because crisis forces clarity. Comfort creates stagnation, but failure demands growth. When survival is at stake, innovation becomes unavoidable. Consider the rise of modern Japan. In the mid-19th century, Japan faced humiliation when Western powers forced open its borders, revealing how technologically behind the nation had become. For a proud society, this moment felt like national failure, but instead of resisting change, Japan embraced transformation. The Meiji Restoration modernized industry, education, and military systems at breathtaking speed. Within a few decades, Japan transformed from a feudal society into a global power competing with Western nations. The shock of weakness became the fuel for strength. This reveals a powerful truth. Failure removes illusion. It forces honesty. Empires grow when they confront reality instead of denying it. And the same principle applies to individuals. Every personal empire, whether career, business, or dream, follows the same rule. Growth begins when excuses end. Another powerful example comes from the rise of the United States after early struggles. The young nation faced economic collapse, political division, and near destruction during the Civil War. The country was deeply fractured, and survival was uncertain. Yet reconstruction and industrial expansion turned crisis into momentum. Railroads, factories, and innovation transformed the nation into an economic powerhouse. Failure forced reinvention, and reinvention created leadership on the global stage. History shows something fascinating. Empires that never faced major failure rarely lasted long. Without struggle, there was no adaptation. Without adaptation, there was decline. The Persian Empire expanded rapidly but struggled to adapt to new military realities. The same pattern appeared in many dynasties that grew comfortable and stopped learning. Success made them rigid. Failure would have saved them, but they avoided change until it was too late. The greatest leaders understood this secret. They did not fear failure. They studied it. They asked hard questions. What went wrong? What must change? What can we become now that we know our weaknesses? Failure became feedback, not identity. Think about how this applies to your own life. Every rejection, every lost opportunity, every setback feels like proof you are falling behind. But history tells a different story. Failure is information. It is direction. It is pressure, shaping you into someone stronger. The same way empires redesign themselves after defeat, you can redesign your habits, mindset, and strategy. The reason most people never build their personal empire is not lack of talent. It is fear of failure. They avoid risks, protect comfort, and stay inside familiar limits. But empires were never built in comfort. Zones of uncertainty create growth because they force adaptation. Every challenge expands capability. Look at the pattern. Rome rebuilt, Britain reinvented, Japan modernized, America transformed. Each story begins with loss. Each story continues with learning. Each story ends with dominance. Failure was not an obstacle. Failure was the turning point. There is also another hidden lesson. Empires that survived failure shared one critical mindset. They separated temporary defeat from permanent identity. Rome lost battles, but never believed it was defeated. Britain lost colonies, but never believed its future was over. Japan faced humiliation, but never accepted weakness as destiny. They understood that events do not define destiny, reactions do. Your failures work the same way. A failed project does not define your future. A rejection does not measure your worth. A setback is simply a moment demanding a stronger version of you. The question is never whether you fail. The question is how you respond when failure arrives. History rewards those who adapt faster than others. Empires that analyzed mistakes evolved quickly while others repeated errors. Speed of learning determines survival. In today's world, this principle matters even more. Technology, industries, and careers change rapidly. The people who succeed are not those who avoid failure, but those who learn faster from it. Imagine if Rome had surrendered after Cannae. Imagine if Britain had retreated after losing America. Imagine if Japan had refused modernization. History would look completely different. Greatness exists because someone decided failure was not final. So here's the mindset shift. Failure is not evidence that you cannot succeed. Failure is evidence that you are attempting something meaningful. Every empire worth remembering walked through chaos before achieving power. Your struggles are not interruptions to success. They are the construction process itself. When you fail, you gain clarity about what works and what does not. You develop resilience, emotional strength, strategic thinking, and humility. These qualities cannot be learned through easy wins. They are forged through difficulty. The same way fire strengthens steel, adversity strengthens character. The most dangerous moment for any empire was not defeat, but complacency. Success created arrogance, and arrogance stopped growth. Failure brought humility, and humility reopened learning. That is why setbacks often become the gateway to transformation. Right now, think about the challenge you are facing. Maybe progress feels slow. Maybe results are invisible. Maybe doubt is louder than confidence. History whispers a powerful message. Every empire felt this moment. Every leader stood at the edge of uncertainty before greatness appeared. The difference was persistence. You are living inside your own historical turning point. The failure you fear may actually be preparing you for expansion, teaching discipline, sharpening focus, revealing strengths you didn't know you had, not know you possessed. The story is not over at failure. The story begins there. Empires were not built by people who never lost. They were built by people who refused to stay down. Rome rose from devastation. Britain rose from humiliation. Japan rose from isolation. America rose from division. Their failures became foundations, not endings. So the next time life tests you, remember this: you are not falling apart. You are being reshaped. Every setback carries hidden instruction. Every challenge contains opportunity. And every failure, if faced with courage, can become the moment that defines your rise. Because history proves one undeniable truth: The greatest empires were not shaped by victory, they were shaped by resilience. And the same force that built civilizations can build your future, if you choose to stand up, learn, adapt, and move forward again. Your empire begins the moment you refuse to quit.